subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The meeting was set to be routine. Alex Johnson, the 43-year-old CEO of the global empire Johnson Enterprises, sat at the head of the sleek, polished boardroom, a table. His eyes scanned the corporate reports, his mind already planning the next big move to cement his dominance in the market. He was a man who had built his life on control and success. Power, respect, and admiration were his daily currency. But that morning, something shifted, something unexpected. The heavy door of the boardroom creaked open, the echo of the hinges cutting through the sterile silence. Alex barely looked up. This was another intern, another bright-eyed graduate eager to secure a foot in the door. He didn't need to pay attention to her, he thought. She would take her seat, scribble notes, and fade into the background like all the others. But then, he felt it. A subtle shift in the room, a change in the air. Alex's gaze flicked to the door. There she stood, Maya. She wasn't tall, not by any means, but she had a presence that made the room feel smaller. There was no reason for it, Alex told himself. She was just another intern. But something about her stood out. Her eyes, dark and intense, met his for a split second. The briefest exchange, yet it was enough. It felt like a flicker of something, larger, something unspoken. Alex straightened in his chair, a rare moment of unease stirring within him. He quickly dismissed it. It was nothing, but even as he turned his attention back to the meeting, his mind lingered on her, on those eyes. He felt a pull, almost magnetic, but he was too seasoned in the game to let distractions derail him. This would be just another day. Maya stepped into the room, her quiet footsteps barely making a sound as she took the seat in the far corner. She was dressed in a modest blazer and a loose blouse, but even in her understated attire there was something about her that defied expectations. Her aura seemed out of place in this room of hardened executives. She didn't belong in their world of power suits and boardroom banter. As the meeting began, Alex struggled to focus. His words came out crisp, his demeanor as commanding as ever. But his mind was elsewhere, on Maya. She sat there taking notes, absorbing everything without a single interruption. Her presence was like a storm on the horizon, just waiting to make landfall. But why? What was it about her that unnerved him? Minutes dragged on, and the words around him blurred into nothing. Alex felt a gnawing sense of curiosity, the kind he hadn't felt in years. It was a strange feeling, one he hadn't experienced since before his ascent to the top. Before the money, the fame, the constant chase for more. "Alex, are you with us?" A voice broke through his reverie. It was John, one of the senior executives, staring at him with a raised brow. "Yes, of course," Alex replied, quickly gathering himself. He shifted in his seat, trying to dismiss the distraction, but something told him he wouldn't be able to let this go. As the meeting continued, Maya remained silent, her attention unwavering. Every time Alex glanced in her direction, she was watching him, her eyes locked on his. It was as if she could see straight through him, piercing through the layers of armor he had built around himself. For the first time in years, Alex felt exposed, vulnerable even. The meeting dragged on, but Maya said nothing. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. Later that afternoon, after the meeting had ended, Alex found himself walking down the hallway to his office. He should have been focused on the work ahead, the merger, the upcoming product launch, but his mind kept drifting back to Maya. Who was she? What was it about her that made him feel this way? He had seen countless interns in his career, but none had ever left this kind of impression on him. He stopped outside the door to his office, running a hand through his hair. He could still feel her eyes on him, that strange, magnetic pull. "Get it together," he muttered to himself. There was no room for distraction in his world. He'd spent years building this empire, and one intern, no matter how intriguing, would not be the reason it all came crashing down. But then, just as he was about to enter his office, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see Maya standing. There, her posture hesitant but determined. "Mr. Johnson," she said, her voice soft but clear. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Alex raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "No, not at all," he replied, gesturing toward his office. "What can I do for you, Maya?" She stepped forward, standing just a few feet away, her gaze fixed on the ground. For a moment, before she looked up again. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity. I know I'm just starting out here, but I have an idea, something I think could help with the new product launch." Alex was taken aback. Most interns, especially at this stage, kept their ideas to themselves, unsure of their place in such a high-pressure environment. But Maya wasn't like the others. She wasn't trying to please him. She wasn't trying to impress him with empty words. There was something about her that made him believe she actually had something valuable to offer. "Go on," he said, gesturing. For her to continue, Maya's eyes flicked briefly to his, then back down to the floor as she began speaking. "I've been looking at the market trends for the past few weeks, and I think we might be missing a key demographic, something that could give us an edge over our competitors." Alex studied her as she spoke. She was calm, collected, unlike any intern he had met before. Her ideas were sharp, insightful, and despite the stark contrast in their positions, Alex found himself listening intently. This wasn't just another intern with a half-baked idea. She was different. When she finished, there was a pause. Alex stood there, staring at her. The silence stretched out, thick and heavy. Maya waited, seemingly unaware of the weight of the moment. Finally, Alex spoke. "I think we'll need to talk more about this. Let's set up a time for next week." Maya nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson." As she turned to leave, Alex felt something shift within him. The strange pull he had felt earlier, those stormy eyes, that unexplainable connection, had deepened. He wasn't sure how, but he knew that his life, his company, was about to change in ways he couldn't begin to understand. He watched as she walked away, her figure disappearing into the hallway. And for the first time in a long time, Alex didn't feel in control. Alex Johnson spent the next several days buried in his usual routine, meetings, conference calls, and the constant pressure of managing a multi-billion-dollar empire. He kept telling himself that the brief encounter with Maya was nothing. She was just another intern, and the curiosity he felt was merely a distraction, a fleeting moment. It had to be. His life had always been one of absolute control, and he wasn't. About to let some mysterious intern unravel that, but the feeling lingered. He couldn't shake it, no matter how hard he tried. There was something about Maya that nagged at him, tugging at the back of his mind like an unresolved chord. She was different from anyone he had ever met, and it wasn't just her ideas. It was her presence, the way she seemed to read him without saying a word. The following week, Alex found himself waiting for their scheduled meeting. It was rare for him to be this impatient about an intern. He had met countless eager, bright minds in his career, and none had left such an impression. But Maya wasn't just another bright mind. She had that rare combination of intelligence and something more, something unquantifiable. It was as if she had unlocked some hidden door to his psyche, one he had worked so hard to keep shut. The moment she walked into his office, the air seemed to shift. Alex glanced at her, trying to maintain his usual aloof composure, but he couldn't help but feel a pull toward her. Her presence was magnetic, drawing him in even though he knew he should stay distant. "Maya," he greeted her, motioning to the seat across from his desk. "Please have a seat." She settled in, crossing her legs with an ease that suggested she had nothing to prove, yet everything to offer. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," she replied, her voice calm and measured. "Alex." couldn't help but wonder what it was that made her so poised, so sure of herself. He had built a career out of observing people, understanding their motivations, their weaknesses, but Maya defied every rule he had come to rely on. "Let's hear it then," he said, settling back in his chair, trying to appear disinterested. "What's your idea?" Maya opened her laptop and began explaining her proposal in a methodical yet impassioned way. She spoke about new market trends, untapped consumer bases, and how the company's current direction was missing out on a rapidly growing niche market. But it wasn't just her ideas that stood out, it was the way she presented them. Maya didn't need Alex's approval. She wasn't seeking validation. She was simply stating facts, challenging the status quo with a quiet confidence that unnerved him. For the first time in years, Alex found himself genuinely intrigued. He wasn't just listening to the words, he was studying her, watching the way her eyes sparkled with conviction, the way she gestured with her hands, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. Everything about her suggested that she was on the verge of something big, something that could change the course of the company. "So, what's your plan for implementation?" Alex asked, his voice more subdued than usual. He wanted to test her, see if she was truly capable of following through on her ideas. Maya paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "I've already begun reaching out to potential partners. I've done the research. I know exactly where we need to focus. The product development team could get started right away, and we could launch within the next 6 months. Alex raised an eyebrow. 6 months? You're confident it's that simple?" She met his gaze. "No, it won't be easy, but it's doable. If we act quickly, we can secure our place in a market that's ripe for disruption, but we can't waste any more time." Alex sat back, folding his arms across his chest. He had heard countless pitches over the years, but there was something about Maya's words that felt different. They didn't feel like just another suggestion. They felt like a challenge, a dare to do something that would make a real impact. It was a risk, but wasn't that what had always driven him? The thrill of the unknown, the gamble that paid off, in ways no one could predict. He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. Maya wasn't afraid of him. She wasn't intimidated by his status, his wealth, or the power he wielded. She was simply presenting her vision, daring him to see it too. "You're not afraid of failure?" he asked, his voice soft. Maya's eyes never wavered. "Failure is part of the process. If you don't take risks, you'll never know what's impossible." Alex stared at her, feeling a strange tension in the air. He had built his entire empire on calculated risks, on the ability to predict outcomes with uncanny precision. But Maya, she was all instinct, all intuition. She wasn't following the rules. She was making her own. For a moment, the room was silent. The weight of her words hung in the air, thick and undeniable. Alex found himself wondering if he had missed something in his own life. Had he become so focused on control that he had lost sight of the excitement, the uncertainty, the thrill of the unknown? "Maya," he began slowly, "you're different." She smiled faintly. "I get that a lot." Alex felt a surge of something he couldn't quite name. Was it admiration, intrigue, or something deeper, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years? "Well," he said, breaking the silence, "I'll admit I'm impressed. I'll have the team look into your proposal. We'll see where it goes." As Maya gathered her things and left the office, Alex leaned back in his chair, his thoughts racing. There was no denying that her idea was brilliant, but it was more than just that. Something about Maya herself had unsettled him, stirred something deep inside him that he hadn't felt in years. That night, as Alex lay in bed, he found himself unable to sleep. He thought about Maya's words, her presence, the way she had looked at him with such certainty, with such an unwavering belief in what she was capable of. But it wasn't just her confidence that unsettled him, it was her indifference to him, to his wealth, and power. She didn't seem to care about his reputation or his success. She didn't want anything from him. And for the first time in a long while, Alex realized that he was the one who felt like he had something to prove. He had built his empire with blood, sweat, and countless sacrifices. Yet here was this intern, this young woman who didn't need validation, didn't need approval, and yet held the power to disrupt everything he had worked so hard for. For the first time in his life, Alex felt like he was facing something he couldn't control. He didn't know if it was a threat or a gift, but he knew one thing for sure. Maya was no ordinary intern, and somehow, in ways he couldn't yet understand, she was going to change his life. The days following Maya's meeting with Alex felt like they moved in slow motion. The conference rooms, the board meetings, the endless demands of running a multi-billion-dollar company, all of it faded into the background. Alex's mind kept returning to Maya. He couldn't stop thinking about her calm confidence, her sharp ideas, and the unsettling way she had made him feel vulnerable for the first time in years. Maya had been right. She had made an impact, and now her ideas were at the forefront of the company's next big move. Alex was forced to confront something that he had avoided for most of his career. Someone else's vision was beginning to shape the future of Johnson Enterprises. It had been a week since their meeting, and Maya had proven herself again. She wasn't just an intern with a clever idea. She was becoming a key player. Her insights into the market were brilliant, her ability to anticipate consumer needs uncanny. The product development team was already working on the concept she had proposed, and the initial feedback was nothing short of glowing. But the closer Alex got to seeing her vision take shape, the more conflicted he became. Was it admiration? Was it something else? His professional life had always been about control, about being the one who made the decisions. But now, it seemed as though Maya's quiet force was beginning to eclipse him. The realization gnawed at him. It was late one evening when Maya approached him again, but this time it wasn't about business. She had that same intense look in her eyes, the one that always seemed to cut through him. She didn't wait for permission to speak. She simply began. "Mr. Johnson," she said, her voice steady yet urgent, "there's something you need to know. Something I've been working on, and I think it could change everything." Alex raised an eyebrow, intrigued. It wasn't often that Maya came to him with personal matters, and he wasn't sure whether he should be concerned or excited. His response was a mixture of both. "What is it?" "I've been doing some research," she continued, her gaze unwavering. "I found something that doesn't make sense. Something that could hurt the company if we don't act fast." Alex felt a twinge of unease. "What are you talking about?" She handed him a folder, one filled with detailed reports and data that Alex hadn't expected. He opened it, skimming through the figures, the charts, the analysis. His eyes narrowed as he began to understand what she was saying. Maya had uncovered discrepancies in the company's financial reports, small, subtle irregularities that, if left unchecked, could spell disaster. This is huge," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. He felt the weight of the situation sink in. "How did you find this?" Maya didn't flinch. "It wasn't hard. I just followed the numbers, looked at the patterns, and everything pointed to the same thing. Whoever is behind this is trying to cover it up, but the trail is there." Alex's mind raced. He had always prided himself on having control over every aspect of the company, yet here was something he hadn't seen coming. Someone had been undermining him, and Maya had discovered it before anyone else. It was a testament to her brilliance, but it also left Alex with a sinking feeling in his stomach. "What do we do now?" he asked, a sense of urgency creeping into his tone. "We need to go public with this," Maya replied without hesitation. "We need to investigate further, expose whoever is responsible before this turns into something bigger than we can handle." Alex stared at her, torn between admiration and fear. "You're suggesting we go public with this now? Without knowing who is behind it? That's dangerous." "I know," she said, her eyes softening. "But if we don't, it could be too late. The longer we wait, the more damage it will do." Alex stood up abruptly, walking to the window. The city skyline was bathed in the golden light of dusk, but inside he felt a storm brewing. He had built this empire from the ground up, and now someone was trying to take it down from the inside. And he had to admit, Maya was right. They couldn't afford to wait. "All right," he said, turning back to her. "We'll move forward with the investigation, but we have to be careful. We don't know who we're dealing with." Maya nodded. "I'll handle the research. You handle the media and the board." As she left the room, Alex felt a sense of dread settle over him. This was no longer just about business, it was personal. Whoever was behind these discrepancies had breached the very core of his company, his legacy, and he had no idea who it was. The days following their decision were filled with tension. Alex and Maya worked closely together, their professional relationship now intertwined with something much darker. As they dug deeper into the company's financial records, the scope of the betrayal became clearer. Someone had been siphoning money for months, hiding the trail with meticulous precision. But there was no mistaking it now. The company was being attacked from within. The more they uncovered, the more Alex's suspicions grew. Could it be someone on the inside? Someone he had trusted? It didn't make sense. But then again, nothing about this situation made sense. Maya's instincts had been right all along, and now she was the one leading the charge. But the deeper they went, the more danger they found themselves in. Alex received an anonymous warning one afternoon. "Stop digging, or there will be consequences." It was chilling, but it didn't stop him. He wasn't the kind of man to back down. If anything, it only fueled his determination to get to the bottom of the mystery. One evening, Maya showed up at his office, looking even more tense than usual. "Alex, we need to talk," she said, her voice low. "I found something I didn't expect." Alex's pulse quickened. "What is it?" She handed him another set of documents, but this time they were different. This was no longer just about financial discrepancies. It was something much more personal. The documents detailed a covert meeting between members of Alex's inner circle, plotting something far more sinister than financial manipulation. It was a conspiracy, one that extended beyond the company. "They've been planning this for months," Maya said, her voice trembling. "They're not just trying to destroy the company, they're trying to destroy you." Alex's world tilted. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of vulnerability pressing down on him. He wasn't just fighting for the future of Johnson Enterprises anymore. He was fighting for his own survival. "Who are they?" Alex asked, his voice cold. Maya hesitated, her eyes filled with doubt. "I don't know yet, but whoever it is, they're close, they're someone you trust." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Alex had always prided himself on knowing everyone in his inner circle. He had built Johnson Enterprises with the help of loyal allies, and he had never once doubted their loyalty. But now, as he stared at the documents Maya had given him, he felt the creeping realization that someone he trusted was plotting against him. The question gnawed at him. Who could it be? And more importantly, why? The answer was just out of reach, a puzzle piece he couldn't quite grasp. But one thing was certain, the closer he got to uncovering the truth, the more dangerous this game became. Maya had been right about everything so far, but now the stakes were higher than ever. He was no longer just dealing with business. He was dealing with something much more personal, and the clock was ticking. Alex's mind raced as he sat in his office, the pile of documents in front of him seeming to mock him. The conspiracy that had been brewing within his own company for months was now in the open. Maya had uncovered it. The slow, deliberate manipulation of the company's financials, the backdoor deals, the secret meetings, the betrayals. But the real kicker, the part that made Alex's stomach churn, was the fact that someone in his inner circle was behind it all. Someone he trusted, and that person was orchestrating not just the downfall of his company, but his own destruction. He glanced at the clock. It was late, later than he had intended to stay. But sleep eluded him. How could he sleep knowing what was at stake? The phone buzzed on his desk, snapping him out of his reverie. It was Maya. He hadn't heard from her in hours, not since their last meeting. He picked up the phone, feeling a sense of urgency rising in his chest. "Alex," Maya's voice came through, tight and urgent. "We need to meet. Now." "What's happened?" Alex asked, his voice tight. "I think I know who's behind this," Maya said, her words coming out in a rush. "I've been looking at the records again, and it's all pointing to one person, but it's going to be hard to prove." "Who?" Alex demanded, his heart pounding in his chest. "I can't say over the phone," Maya replied. "But you'll want to hear this in person. I'll meet you at the usual place." Alex didn't hesitate. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out of the office, his mind a whirl of questions. Who could it be? He thought he knew everyone in his inner circle. But now, with the walls closing in, it seemed like anyone could be the culprit. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on his chest as he made his way to the meeting spot. The cafe was quiet when Alex arrived, the only sound the soft hum of conversation from a couple at the back of the room. Maya was already sitting at their usual table, a cup of coffee in front of her, but her gaze was distant, focused on something Alex couldn't see. As he approached, she looked up and met his eyes. There was a subtle change in her demeanor, an edge of fear, of uncertainty that hadn't been there before. It was unsettling. "Sit down," she said, her voice low. Alex slid into the chair across from her, his gaze narrowing. "What's going on, Maya?" She pushed a folder across the table to him. "I've been digging into the records again. The numbers are there, Alex. I know who's behind all of this. But it's not who you think." Alex's hand hovered over the folder, but didn't touch it. "Who is it?" he asked, the words heavy with dread. Maya took a deep breath, her eyes flicking nervously around the cafe before she spoke. "It's Karen." Alex froze. "Karen Thompson, the CFO of Johnson Enterprises for the past 10 years. The woman he had trusted more than anyone else. She had been by his side through the highs and lows of the company's rise to the top. He'd always seen her as a loyal ally, a steady hand in the chaos of corporate life. But now, Maya's words hung in the air like a death sentence. "You're sure?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been going over the records," Maya said. "I tracked the transactions, the meetings, everything. She's been involved in every shady deal. She's been funneling money out of the company, but it's more than just that. She's been leaking information to our competitors." Alex felt the world tilt beneath him. Karen had been his right hand, his most trusted advisor. The thought that she could betray him like this was unfathomable, but the evidence was clear. "How do you know it's her?" Alex asked, his mind struggling to keep up with the flood of emotions. "I found a trail," Maya said, her voice trembling. "It wasn't easy, but it's there. I traced her movements, her financial dealings. She's been covering her tracks, but I found the connections. She's been working with someone on the inside, someone who's trying to take down Johnson Enterprises." Alex sat back, his mind reeling. "But why? Why would she do this?" Maya shook her head. "I don't know. But she's been playing both sides. She's been taking advantage of her position, manipulating the company's finances, undermining everything you've built." Alex's hands clenched into fists. He could feel his anger rising, hot and fierce. Karen had betrayed him. She had betrayed everything they had worked for. But as much as he wanted to confront her, to demand answers, he knew that doing so without concrete evidence would only make him look desperate. He needed to be smart about this. He needed to plan his next move carefully. "We need to gather more evidence," Alex said, his voice cold. "If we expose her without proof, it'll destroy the company. We need to find out who she's working with, and we need to make sure we have everything in place before we make our move." Maya nodded. "I agree. But time is running out, Alex. If we don't act fast, she'll cover her tracks, and we'll be left with nothing." For the next few days, Alex and Maya worked together, carefully gathering evidence against Karen. They dug through financial records, scoured emails, and tracked down any leads they could find. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became. Karen was at the center of a vast web of deceit and manipulation. But who was she working with? That was the question that still haunted Alex. As they sifted through mountains of data, Alex found himself drawn closer to Maya. Her sharp intellect, her tenacity, and her unwavering determination had become his lifeline in this chaotic situation. But it was more than just that. Maya had become his partner in this battle, someone he could trust when everything else seemed to be crumbling around him. But as much as he valued her, he couldn't help but wonder, what was she hiding? What drove her to take such a personal interest in this investigation? The more he worked with her, the more he realized that there was something about Maya that went deeper than just her professional expertise. There was a quiet intensity about her, an unresolved mystery in her own life that she hadn't shared. But Alex knew better than to ask. The stakes were too high. And right now, he couldn't afford to get distracted by his personal feelings. Late, one night, as Alex sat in his office, going over the final pieces of evidence, he received an anonymous email. The subject line was simple: "You're too late." His heart skipped a beat. The email contained nothing but a single attachment, a video file. He hesitated for only a moment before opening it. As the video played, his stomach dropped. The footage showed Karen seated in a dark room, speaking to a shadowy figure. "It's almost time," Karen said in the video, her voice low and urgent. "The company will fall, and we'll be the ones to pick up the pieces. Just a little longer, and we'll control everything." The shadowy figure leaned forward, his face obscured in the darkness. "Do you have the files?" "I'm sending them now," Karen replied. "Once they're in place, we move." Alex's breath caught in his throat. The video confirmed everything. Karen wasn't just stealing from the company, she was planning something far more dangerous. He stared at the screen, his mind spinning. Karen had gone too far. She wasn't just a traitor, she was a threat to everything Alex had worked for. And now he had no choice but to confront her. The walls of Alex's office felt smaller with every passing hour. The weight of the conspiracy pressing down on him was almost unbearable. He hadn't slept in days. Every time he closed his eyes, all he saw was Karen, her face twisted in betrayal. She had been his closest ally, and now he had to face the reality. She was working against him, undermining everything he had built. It wasn't just about the company anymore. It was about survival. If Karen succeeded in her plan, Alex's legacy, everything he had fought for, would be gone. But there was more at stake. Karen wasn't working alone. The anonymous video had shown her speaking with someone in the shadows, someone whose identity was still a mystery. And then there was Maya. The more Alex worked with her, the more he realized that she had become an integral part of this investigation. He had trusted her, and yet there was something unsettling about her, something she wasn't saying. The deeper they dug, the closer they got to the truth, the more Alex wondered what Maya's real motivations were. But there was no time for doubt. He couldn't afford to second-guess himself now. He had to act, and fast. It was late when Alex called Maya. She answered on the first ring. "I have something," he said, his voice tense. "Meet me at the office. We need to talk." "Alex, is everything okay?" Maya's voice sounded distant, but Alex could hear the concern in her tone. "I'll explain when you get here. Just hurry." When Maya arrived, she found Alex pacing in his office, his face drawn with exhaustion. He didn't look up as she walked in, his focus entirely on the stack of documents in front of him. "Maya, I've been thinking," Alex began without preamble, his voice tight. "We need to confront Karen. We can't wait any longer. We have enough evidence now. The video, the financial records, everything. We have her." Maya didn't move. She stood by the door, watching him. "Are you sure, Alex? Are you sure you're ready for this?" Alex turned to face her. "What are you asking me?" "Of course I'm ready. This is the only way to stop her from destroying everything." Maya's gaze softened for a moment. She took a step forward, but then hesitated. "I'm not talking about Karen, Alex. I'm talking about you." He frowned, the weight of her words settling over him. "What do you mean?" Maya stepped closer, her eyes fixed on his. "I know what this is doing to you. The pressure, the fear, the anger. It's not just about the company anymore, is it?" Alex's heart skipped a beat. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Maya said quietly, "that you're on the edge. You've been running this company for years, but now you're losing control. You're consumed by this. It's all you can think about, but you have to ask yourself, what's more important, your company or your soul?" Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. He opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. He wanted to tell her that everything he had done, every sacrifice he had made, had been for Johnson Enterprises. But that didn't feel true anymore. He wasn't sure when it had happened. When had he started to lose sight of everything else? When had the power, the wealth, the control become more important than the people in his life? More important than his own peace of mind? Maya stepped forward, her eyes searching his. "Alex, you need to stop. This obsession is going to break you, and I don't want to see that happen." Alex's breath came in sharp gasps. He felt cornered, trapped by his own choices. But he couldn't stop now. He couldn't walk away. "I have to finish this," Alex said, his voice raw. "I have to stop her. She's not just after my company, Maya. She's after me, and I'm not going to let her win." The tension between them hung in the air like a heavy fog, but Alex couldn't let it distract him. Maya was right. He had to confront Karen. Hours later, Alex found himself standing outside Karen's office. The door was closed, but the lights were still on. She was in there waiting for him, or perhaps waiting for someone else. It didn't matter. With a deep breath, Alex pushed open the door. Karen looked up in surprise, her face betraying nothing. She quickly stood from her desk, her hand instinctively reaching for the phone. "Alex," she said, her voice smooth, almost too calm. "What can I do for you?" "You know what this is about," Alex said, his voice low and steady. Karen's eyes narrowed. "I'm afraid I don't." "I've seen the video," Alex replied, his voice cutting through the tension. "I know what you've been doing. You've been selling my company out from under me, leaking information and trying to destroy everything I've built. And I'm not going to let you get away with it." Karen didn't flinch. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice cool and composed. "You have no idea what's really going on." "I know enough," Alex shot back, "and I have the evidence. The financial records, the emails, the video. It's all there. I've been patient with you, Karen, but this ends tonight." Karen stood still for a moment, her face unreadable. Then slowly she walked to the door and locked it. "I see," she said, her voice taking on a darker tone. "You've been doing your homework, but you still don't understand, do you, Alex?" He stared at her, feeling a chill run down his spine. Understand what? Karen smirked, her eyes gleaming. That this was never about money. It was never about the company. It's about power, the power I should have had. You think you built this empire on your own, but you didn't. You had help, and now it's time for me to take what's mine. Alex felt the ground beneath him shift. He had underestimated her. This wasn't just about betrayal, it was about something far darker, something personal. He had no idea how deep this went, but he was about to find out. Why? Alex asked, his voice shaking with anger. Why betray me after everything we've been through? Because you never saw me, Karen said, her voice low and bitter. You never saw what I was capable of. You always took me for granted, Alex, and now you'll pay for it. The confrontation with Karen had shaken Alex to his core, but it was only the beginning. Karen had played her cards, and now Alex had to play his. As he left her office, his mind whirred with possibilities. He had to stop her. He had to take back control. But at what cost? Maya was waiting for him outside the office. She didn't ask any questions. She didn't need to. Let's finish this, Alex said, his voice grim. Maya nodded. We will. The pieces were falling into place. The web of betrayal was becoming clearer, but there was still one question that lingered. Who was Karen working with? And more importantly, why had she decided to turn on Alex after all these years? As Alex and Maya prepared to take the final steps, they knew that the stakes had never been higher. They were on the edge of something much bigger than they had imagined, and the truth was just beyond their grasp. But they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The final chapter had arrived. Alex Johnson stood at the edge of a precipice, his empire crumbling beneath his feet. The battle had gone on for months, each move in the investigation feeling like an act of desperation, yet each revelation uncovering deeper layers of betrayal. From Karen's treachery to the quiet but powerful presence of Maya in this unfolding drama, Alex now realized he had been fighting a battle much larger than he had anticipated. It wasn't just about the company anymore. It wasn't about power or control. It was about survival, his survival, both personally and professionally. The truth that had been hidden from him, buried beneath a sea of lies and deceit, was now too real to deny. As Alex looked out over the city skyline from his penthouse office, the weight of everything he had built and everything he was about to lose pressed heavily on his chest. The glass walls of his office reflected a man who was no longer the confident, calculated leader who had built Johnson Enterprises from nothing. He was a man on the edge, teetering between revenge and redemption, the confrontation. The phone call had come that morning. Karen, in her usual cold and calculated manner, had invited Alex to meet her. No longer was she the woman who had stood by his side, loyal and trustworthy. No, now she was the enemy, the one who sought to destroy him, and every word she had spoken since her betrayal had cut deeper than the last. Maya, Alex said, his voice hard. It's time. We have to meet her, confront her once and for all. Maya looked at him, her eyes full of understanding, but there was a flicker of concern beneath it. She had been with him every step of the way, but this was different. The final step in the journey felt like a moment of no return. You're sure about this? She asked quietly, her voice carrying the weight of the question. Once we go in there, there's no turning back. Alex turned to face her, his eyes locked onto hers. For all the tension and suspicion that had built between them over the months, there was a clarity now, a resolution that neither of them could deny. I'm sure, Alex said, his voice low but firm. It's the only way we end this, the only way we move forward. The meeting took place in a dimly lit conference room in one of the older buildings owned by Johnson Enterprises. The space was a relic of the past, filled with worn furniture and walls that held the echoes of countless decisions made by Alex and his team over the years. The perfect setting for the final confrontation. Alex and Maya arrived first. They were the first to enter the room, their footsteps echoing on the marble floors as they took their seats. The air was thick with anticipation. Maya remained silent, her eyes constantly scanning the room, while Alex couldn't help but feel that sense of dread settle in his chest once more. When Karen arrived, she entered with the same confident stride. Alex had come to associate with her over the years, but this time there was something different in her eyes. There was no trace of the woman who had been his confidant. Instead, she was colder, more distant, like a shadow of the person he once knew. "Alex," she greeted him, her voice almost too calm. "Maya." "Cut the pleasantries, Karen," Alex snapped, not bothering to hide the anger in his voice. "You know why we're here." Karen didn't flinch. Instead, she walked to the center of the room and took a seat, her posture perfect, her demeanor composed. "I assume this is about your little investigation," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "I'm impressed you've come this far. I didn't think you had it in you." Alex clenched his fists, feeling the heat of his anger rise. "I know what you've been doing, Karen. The embezzling, the sabotage, leaking information to our competitors. You've been playing a dangerous game, and I'm not going to let you destroy everything I've built." Karen's eyes gleamed with something almost resembling amusement. "What have you built, Alex? A corporate empire that thrives on exploitation. You think you're different from the rest? You think you're above the people you've crushed along the way?" Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He had built Johnson Enterprises from nothing, clawing his way to the top. But now Karen was right. He had crushed people along the way. He had become what he once despised. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. "No," Alex said, his voice shaking with a mix of rage and sorrow. "I built this company, and I won't let you take it down." "You've already lost," Karen said, her voice colder now. "You just don't know it yet." The revelation Maya had been quietly observing the exchange, her mind racing. Something didn't feel right. Karen was playing a game, but there was something more beneath her words. She had been the one who had exposed Karen's betrayal, but now, watching the exchange unfold, Maya realized that Alex wasn't the only one Karen had been playing all along. "I think it's time you hear the full story," Maya said, her voice steady and calm, cutting through the tension in the room. Karen's eyes flicked to Maya, and for the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed her face. "What are you talking about?" Maya didn't flinch. "You've been working with someone else, haven't you? Someone high up. Someone who's been pulling the strings from the shadows," Karen's silence was telling. Alex turned to Maya, his brow furrowed in confusion. "You knew?" he asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and shock. "I didn't want to believe it," Maya admitted, her voice soft. "But the pieces started to fit. You were being manipulated, Alex, and I'm sorry, but I have to tell you this now. The person who's been pulling the strings isn't just someone from your company." Alex's heart skipped a beat. "Who?" Maya's eyes locked with his. "It's your brother." Alex felt the room tilt, his breath caught in his throat, and for a moment the world went silent. His brother, David, the one person he thought he could trust more than anyone. But Maya's words cut through the fog of confusion like a knife. "No," Alex breathed, shaking his head. "David wouldn't. He couldn't." "I found the transactions, Alex," Maya said softly. "The meetings, the deals with Karen, the financial ties. Your brother has been working with Karen all along, setting up a plan to take down the company." The shock of the revelation hit Alex like a wave, drowning him in disbelief. His own flesh and blood, the man he had trusted more than anyone. This was a betrayal unlike any other. Karen's face twisted with a smile that wasn't one of triumph, but one of something darker. "You were always too blinded by your own ego to see it, Alex. David was always the smarter one, the one with the vision. But you... No, Alex cut her off, his voice barely a whisper. You're lying. But as much as he wanted to deny it, the evidence was right there, staring him in the face. Maya had been right. His brother had been pulling the strings from behind the scenes, and now Alex realized that everything he had done, everything he had built, was part of the plan to destroy him. The decision, the weight of the truth, pressed down on Alex, suffocating him. His mind spun as the full extent of the conspiracy unfolded in front of him. But this wasn't just about his company anymore. It was about his own identity, his own future. The realization that his own brother had betrayed him sent a shockwave through his soul. But Alex was no longer the man who let things happen to him. He had a choice to make. I'm not going to let you get away with this, Alex said, his voice steady and resolute. Let me go? Karen scoffed. You don't get it, Alex. This was never about you. It was always about power. We're just at the beginning of something much bigger. You're already too far gone. Alex took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything he had fought for, everything he was about to lose. But there was one thing he knew for certain. He wasn't going to let Karen or David destroy him. Not without a fight, Maya, Alex said, his voice filled with determination. It's time to end this. Let's bring this to the light. Maya nodded, her expression firm, understanding what was at stake. They had one final chance to set everything right. Alex knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but as he looked at Maya standing by his side, he realized something. Despite the betrayals, the lies, and the pain, he had found something far more valuable than money or power. He had found trust. He had found a partner, and together they would rebuild what had been torn apart. The final lesson, the story of betrayal, survival, and redemption had come to an end. But the lessons that Alex learned would stay with him forever. In the face of deceit, he had found his own strength. He had realized that true power didn't come from control, but from the ability to trust others and to fight for what truly mattered. As Alex stood at the window, watching the sunrise over the city, he knew that his journey was far from over. There would always be challenges, always be obstacles, but with the right people by his side, he could face anything. And as for the future of Johnson Enterprises, he wasn't sure, but he knew one thing: he would rebuild, and this time he wouldn't make the same mistakes. The end.